I drew the lines myself on the laminate maps, from the desert and down to the sea, where the tankers crawl slow through the Strait of Hormuz, and the guns on the shore watch for me. 20 miles wide, and I knew every mine, every barnacled threatened that tide. But I sat at the table with polished wood chairs when they said send them through, and complied. I signed off on the screens in the glow of the flags, with the cameras positioned in rows. I knew where the ordnance would fall in the night. I had seen all the targeting photos. I filed the report when the zipper half melted. The strike had been perfectly led, but the smoke in the morning was thick with the lost, and my signature lived with the dead. I know what it means when a strait turns to war. I watched the radar lights blink in the night. I've seen shorelines flash with missile and flame, and the water erupt into light. I've stood on the bridges and stared at the fire. I've written the cables home. I know what it means when a man reads a cable, and I know what waits when he's gone. I heard every whisper that ran through the halls, that the plan had been broken from birth. And I said nothing aloud to the man who believed he commanded the earth. I told myself someone above me would speak, that the truth had its own way of crawling. But the leaks found the papers before I found courage, and I watched from the hall as it all started falling. I watched the price of the oil climb 20%. I sat in the briefings on risk. I had written the memo that nobody read, that said this is a path to the abyss. For the mines may be drifting and missiles still wait, and the shoreline can reach where you sail. And a man with 4 stars on his collar still knew when the mission was destined to fail. I stood where the dust settles down, on the chalk in the small broken chairs, in the buildings that held all the noise of the young, now holding just stop clocks and prayers. I stood beside him when he straightened his flag, when his mouth made the shape of regret. But I wore the same uniform, carried the same rank, and my silence is one I can't forget. I taught at the war college. I knew the ledgers from Kabul and hue in the rain. I stood at the podium and said we learned from history, then watched us repeat it again. For the weak never needed to conquer the strong, they just needed the clock and the rust. And I knew the clock running. I stood in the rain and I led good men into the dust. Now I carry it out from the desert and down to the strait where the tankers still pass, where the fires on the water have long since gone cold, and the wreckage is sunk through the glass. And somewhere a bell rings for children who died, and for men who followed my orders. And I keep all the names that the generals forget in the quiet beyond my last boy.